Okay, good morning. Yeah, I know. I'm here. I'm here. Good morning, Digi. Good morning, Data. What y'all up to? Yeah, I know. It showed 00. And that 00, I had a mouthful of toast. And you didn't want to hear me crunching away on a mouthful of toast. And of course, I had to finish eating that slice of toast because it was just so good. It was a loaf of bread we bought at Sam's on impulse the other day on Saturday. And oh my, it's sort of mediocre as it is if you don't toast it. But once you toast it and the raisins and the dates get, oh, and you put some Kerrygold butter on it, yeah, it just cannot. Hey, morning, Paul. It just cannot get any better than that. I mean, uh, I'm going to be baking some bread here this week, and I am going to go buy some raisins and some dates, and I'm going to chop up and add into it because it that just adds so much. Hey, morning, Retro. Hey, the invite's there. If you want to come, you come. If you don't, you don't. I mean, I had a ball yesterday. I will have to admit, though, that 4 hour stream, the wife sat looking at me afterwards and said, so your streams are normally over at 11. Why did you go until 1 when I'm home and have things for you to do? And I'm like, babe, it's not my fault. It's all Retro's fault. Retro gave me something that he wanted me to respond to, and he came on, and it's all his fault. I'm sorry. Hey, it is what it. You nuts if you think I'm gonna make my wife mad at me without sharing the wealth a little bit. Well, Data, I didn't stream at all. Well, I mean, I did a Monday stream last week, and that was it. I was out of commission for the whole week. I didn't get feeling any better until Friday, and even then, I was feeling good enough to get out of bed and turn on a computer, and not just my phone. So, any activity y'all saw by me Tuesday through Friday, or Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, that was activity on my phone. It wasn't on the computer. So, but anyway, going to jump up to Virginia today. They've got a gentleman running for the state's attorney general. Now, we all know what the state's attorney general is supposed to do. They are the chief law keeper for the state. They are it. He's the man, or he or she is the man that really pushes states, the laws for the state. We need to bring felony crimes against this politician. We need to do something for this politician. We got this mayor. We've got these criminals down here that we want to prosecute as a state and really bring the hammer down. That's the state AG that does that. And they've got the Democrats have got a very interesting man running for the state AG. And as you saw by my thumbnail, he he's got his he's got his things going on. Just a couple years ago, this Mr. Johnson, this is part of a text chain. You simply weren't asking questions and you know it. I genuinely was. I wasn't attacking you. I was trying to understand your logic. That's Mr. Johnson in the gray. The person he's talking to is in the blue. Mr. Johnson, I've told you this before. Only when people feel pain personally do they move on policy. And I can understand the logic behind that because a lot of people, until it happens to them, they don't understand. That's that saying, an 18-year-old is a liberal, a 28-year-old is a conservative. Because in that 10 years, they've experienced things and they felt some of that pain personally that they didn't feel before. Uh-oh, the wife's got her purse on her shoulder. She must be getting ready to walk out the door. You going shopping, baby doll? Nope. Oh, okay. So yeah, they just sort of, as you grow and you experience things, you feel more pain, and that does cause you to change your positions. There isn't. I point blank asked you more than 3 times, and you dug in that you meant it. I honestly am questioning it a lot today. I mean, and this is Johnson. Do I mean Todd and Jennifer are evil, that they're breeding little fascists? Yes. He is talking about Todd and Jennifer. Todd is an opponent, political opponent. Jennifer is, she's returning some stuff to Amazon. That's where she's going to. So, he's literally calling political opponents evil. Mwah. Love you, dear. Love you too. Be careful out there on the roads. People are idiots. But then you know that because you married one. Loves ya. Bye bye. If these folks die before me, I will go to their funerals and piss on their graves. Send them out awash in something. 3 people, 2 bullets. Gilbert, Hitler, and Pol Pot. Spoiler, Todd, Gilbert, in the crew and the 2 worst people you know, and he receives both bullets every time. Jay, please stop. LOL, okay. It really bothers me. Spanky. It really bothers me when you talk about hurting other people or wishing death on them. That's the man running for attorney general. in the state of Virginia. That's him. That's what he wants. And then on top of that, Jay Jones, was caught recklessly driving 116 miles per hour on I-64. Then he tried to claim campaign work for his own pet counted as community service to avoid jail time.
On a dangerous stretch of I-64, Jay Jones pushed the needle to 116 miles an hour. That puts regular Virginians in jail. But Jay Jones is a politician. He got off. Jay Jones's punishment for endangering lives? Community service. And he served himself. Jay Jones counted work for his political committee to avoid jail. Jay Jones is too soft on crime, like his own.
I'm Jason Miaras, candidate.
116. And he got off for that to serve 8 hours community service. And he was allowed to do that working on his own campaign. Now, the woman, the white liberal woman running for governor, is fully supporting him. Where did my other tab go? Oh no. I accidentally used it. I accidentally used it to do something else with. Unbelievable. Let me see if I can find another link to it here. No, I don't want Instagram. Jay Jones supported. Okay, here we go. Now, this is Miss Spanberger. She is a gubernatorial candidate. She condemned him for running for those text messages, but she hasn't asked him to drop out of the race. At best, all she has said was, I made it clear to Jay he must take responsibility for his words. As a candidate and the next governor of our Commonwealth, I always condemn violent language. And that is as far as she's willing to take it. She's not willing to say that, the man needs to drop from the race. And the here we go. Melanie Cartwright of the Virginia Beach Democrats. I fully stand with Jay Jones. Period. End of statement. What else can you take from this? But, at least the Virginia Democrats. Okay, Digi, you try to have a good day. Enjoy yourself. I know you're heading to work. Now you're having a deja vu moment because what I've talked about here before, because these text messages for Jay Jones just come out on Friday. What you've heard me talk about before on this race is this is the Democrat, white liberal woman who supports DEI, is running as the Democrat candidate. And let's see here. Let me pull up. And this is the candidate for, oh, come on. Is this a CBS? It sure as hell is CBS. Dang it. That's really great at CBS. I clicked on Winston's name, and what do? They bring up Spamberger. Tell me CBS isn't biased. Let me pull up images here. Maybe I can get a good picture of her. Here we go. There we go. Sort of opposite to the running counter to the perceived norms by the media and so many people in the country. The white woman is the liberal Democrat, and the black lady there is the conservative Republican, both running for the same office. Both running to be the first female governor of Virginia. One is running to be the first white female governor. Noodles, good morning, ramen. The other is running to be the first black female governor. Now, if the political parties here were opposite, you would hear nothing but about the Virginia race and the first female black governor, how she wins, and how all the black girls in Virginia will have somebody to look up to. But they're basically silent about her. They're not giving her the the airtime push that they give other black candidates who just happen to be Democrats. No, 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 no. She's not getting that wholesome press coverage, with how the hopes of the black community lie on her shoulder. How she's going to represent the black community and give the little black girls someone to look up to. How the little black girls are going to see themselves in her. And who knows how many of them will run for political office because she ran and won and became the first black governor of the state. No, that's not the coverage they're getting. And of course, nobody is asking the white liberal who supports DEI why she isn't stepping down from the race to allow a black woman to become the first female governor of the state. How important that is, that a black woman be the governor, for that diversity and inclusion. No, 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 no. She's not giving up her chance to become the first female governor. So, hypocrisy runs strong on the Democratic Party here, as we've seen, because they just can't stand being held to their own standards. And an attorney general who's caught running 115, 116 miles an hour on an interstate, and his sole punishment was 8 hours of community service on his own political campaign. Yep. Pure blind hypocrisy there. All right. That's enough of that. We're going back into what I did talk about yesterday here in Portland, the riots. I need to replay part of yesterday's program so you can hear what was said again. And sadly, I tried to find the audio again, the video captures that I used from yesterday, and I couldn't find them. I could only find condensed versions. So I'm just going to replay part of yesterday's show. And I'm sorry I got to do that, but unfortunately, that's what I got to do. Requested Chicago police to come help them. This is the screen of one of the police operators. Chief of Patrol, no units will respond to this as related. Okay. Callers is one of approximately 30 armed patrol agents, ICE, who are being surrounded by a large crowd of people requesting CPD. Okay,
Yeah,
read it from bottom up.
and that
Thir-
wasn't even people. It was like 10 vehicles too.
Right. So what we've got here is the actual audio recording. I don't know if you'd heard this or not.
90 beyond. Yeah, send the cars in that direction. Have them stay put 2 or 3 blocks.
Okay. Any kind of particular hairstyle, just younger male Hispanic on foot wearing all black?
No hairstyle.
Okay, 10-4. And one is for the hit and run. This guy fled from the scene at 37th Place in Kedzie. It all started at I-55 in Kedzie. Then they fled southbound at Kedzie, where that offending vehicle crashed. They ran the federal agent off the road. They fled on foot westbound 30.
Okay, did you hear that? They ran the federal agents off the road. That is a direct attack on the federal agents.
Mm-hmm.
No ifs, ands, or buts about it.
7th Place from Kedzie. It was a male Hispanic younger wearing all black clothing. 90 man.
Yeah, send the cars in that direction. Have them stay put 2 or 3 blocks.
That's the chief of patrol talking there. Telling her what to tell the patrols.
Have them stay put 2 or 3 blocks away, all right? Have them hold tight until I give you further direction, please.
Okay, 10-4. And for the units responding to 39th Place in Kedzie per 999, if you guys can just, for the units responding to 39th Place in Kedzie, if you guys can start heading there as quick as you can, and then just hold tight for instructions with 999.
999.
999.
So the chief of patrol, clear everybody up. We're not responding over there.
Okay. Per the chief of patrol, have everybody clear out. We are not responding. Okay. Boy, I hate listening to myself. The spokesman, and by the stars on his collar here, the chief of police for Chicago.
At any time on
to say.
Saturday, were CPD officers told by dispatchers to stand down?
The question here is improperly phrased. The question here is improperly phrased. You know, she used the term stand down. She should not have said that, because this is allowing this son of a gun a way out.
Officers told by dispatchers to stand down.
Well, I don't know about them being told by dispatchers. There was some communication between boots on the ground, a supervisor, and the chief of patrol. So there was some communication by phone. There was something that was put out there that there was an internal message that came from the chief of patrol. That is absolutely not true. There is no internal message.
There is no internal message. So what we saw on the screen was not an internal message. Got ya.
It was a phone conversation. I'm not sure until we get to our after action, all of the exact language that was there. But I have had a conversation with the chief of patrol, who was concerned about officers showing up on the scene. The chief of patrol at that time had no information that anyone was in danger. And let me.
So the chief of patrol is telling the officers that they would not be responding after the call in is that the ICE agent's car had been rammed by another vehicle. And then he turns around and says, well, we're not responding. So that leaves two stories here, two lines, the fork here. Fork one is that he was told what had happened. He heard the phone call or, the call in saying that, they'd been run off the road. And he still decided that nobody would respond. Or he made a decision to have nobody respond without asking what was going on. Or if he did ask what was going on, nobody told him that the people were ran off the road. So those are the three options, not two, but three options. One, he knew and decided not to. Two, nobody told him when they contacted him. And three, they told him and he said, screw them, I don't care.
Just be clear about one other thing when it comes to these federal agents. These federal agents can handle themselves.
They can handle themselves when they're being when their vehicle is being smashed into by another vehicle and ran into, I believe it was a ditch, but rammed into. A 2-ton vehicle smashing into your vehicle, and yeah, you're tough. You can handle that.
All right. We've been out there and we've seen it. Now, that doesn't mean that we're going to leave them because we know that they can handle themselves. We need to make sure that we have our officers and enough of them to respond to a scene if they are being surrounded. So were they told to stand down? Our officers were not told to stand down.
No, they weren't told not to stand down. They were told not to respond. Even though they basically mean the same thing, you're getting off on using terminology. They were told not to respond. And while that means the same thing as to stand down, it's not the same words. So technically, are you lying there, buddy? No, you're not lying. But I'm going to still call you a liar to your face. I would call, if I could be standing in front of you, I would call you a liar to your face. Or, once again, you're up there talking without knowing the whole facts. Oh, that's right. You're waiting for the after action reports. You're waiting on the after action reports in the investigation before you'll say anything. Meanwhile, the rest of the country has heard the audio. The rest of the country has seen the screenshot. We all know what happened, but for some reason you don't. For some reason you don't know what happened out there, while the rest of the country does. Unbelievable. Just simply unbelievable.
Our officers were out there throughout the entire event. I would never tell our officers to stand down because if our officers were in trouble and we needed help from other officers, I would expect those officers to step in and help us. And it's the same thing that we do on our side.
Yeah, you wouldn't tell your people to stand down, but your chief of patrol's got no problem telling them not to respond. Come on, dude. How about a little honesty here? Now, one of my favorite sheriffs, one of America's favorite sheriffs, Sheriff Grady Judd. He had this to say.
Hello, I'm Sheriff Grady Judd. I've spent my entire adult life in law enforcement, and I have never heard of one law enforcement agency not helping another when they call for help until this weekend. When a chief of patrol for the Chicago Police Department instructed the police officers not to run in and help their colleagues who were calling for help, who were under attack by a bunch of people clearly violating the law. That's scary. Let me give you the antithesis of that. We had a single man resist ICE agents and get away from them in our community. We sent a helicopter, a drone, K9, and 50 law enforcement officers to surround an area, and we found that guy who violently resisted ICE, and we locked him up in jail where he should have been. If you allow anarchists and criminals to run wild in your community, people will die. People will be shot. Now, let me say this. For other law enforcement leaders across this state and nation, you need to be standing up saying the same exact thing that I am. Because when you have a breakdown of the rule of law, when you allow anarchists, criminals to take over the streets and attack law enforcement officers and then not send them help, that's a slippery slope, a real slippery slope.
Thank you, Grady Judd. I've told you before, my father, for a few years, was a police officer. I've got other cops in my family. I've got one uncle who is a chief of police, the other one who is a police commissioner, another one who is chief of detectives. Got a family friend who was chief of police of a neighboring town. So these are the people I grew up around. And y'all also are very well, aware of my disdain for some of the cops we have out there now. Many of them who are prior military, who are using military tactics and dealing with the general public on a day-to-day basis. And then we got the ones out there with roid rage. I'm not saying all cops are bad. I'm just saying I wish the good cops out there would turn in the bad ones. Get some of the bad ones out of uniforms. I've got a few here in my hometown that I've been advocating to their boss that they need to go. And I think I about got them convinced on one of them, but that's beside the point. Politics should not, but it does, should not play a game when it comes to the police. I do not know this particular man's political persuasion for certain, but he is chief of police of Chicago, a heavily Democrat town. A town where the mayor of the city has determined that ICE will not even be allowed to use public facilities for staging grounds. He signed a it's not an executive order, but it's basically the same thing, just on the mayor's level. And also that they will enforce trespassing on any ICE agents who use a private parking lot of a business as a staging ground that the business owner does not want them there. So he will enforce trespassing against them. So that's the mayor. And this chief of police and this chief of patrol both work for him. And of course, we've got the governor of that state, which feels the Republicans are the Nazi party. We're just a little bit slower than the Nazis because the Nazis took over Germany in 40 days, and we haven't done it yet in 8 months. 4 years and 8 months, because Trump did have a previous administration. And then, you know, the judges are correctly ruling against Trump having unfettered ability to send the National Guard into Chicago and Portland, etc. I've said before, I will say it again. If Trump would announce he's sending them in to be stationed at and to protect federal facilities and federal employees, I would wholly support him in that. But even Ms. Leavitt this morning, at least I heard or she said it yesterday, I believe, and I caught it on the news this morning. When questioned about sending the Guard into these cities, she goes, well, they should be happy we're doing it because look what's happened in D.C. Murder's down by 40%. This is down by 80%. That crime's down by this amount. That is not the National Guard's job to go in and solve local crimes or prevent local crime. It's not the president's billywhack to do that. And do I agree that the local police are not doing enough? 100%. I do agree that the local police are not doing enough. But that is for the local citizens to take care of. That's for the local citizens to decide that they want a new mayor, that they want a new police chief, that they want new whatever it takes to get crime under control. That's not up to the president to walk in there and tell the mayor that he's not doing his job and protecting his people well enough, and he's going to take over policing. I'm sorry, but that's a violation of the Constitution. The president does not have that authority. Never has had, never should have. Have they done it in the past? Yes. Was it wrong? Did the outcome of the event of the president doing that, was it a good outcome? Most of the time, yes. Looking back on it decades later. But was it still an overreaching move by the federal government? Yes, it was. Local politicians should take care of local problems unless they go and request first the governor's help. And if the governor determines that they can't do it with what they've got available to them, then step in and request federal assistance. Now, that doesn't stop the president from offering federal assistance, but if hey, if he's told now we don't need it, we got a grip on it ourselves, that's the end of the conversation. I like Trump. I like what he does. I liked it. I voted for him 3 times. And if he were to, he won't because of his age, but if he were to run for another office, could you imagine? Weird thought here. A much younger president, much younger, ran for, he got elected at age 35, ran for 4 years, 4 additional years. So he had his 8 years in office. So 35, that'd make him 42, 43 maybe. He sets out for 4 years, runs again, not as president, but as vice president. And his vice president that he had, all right, a younger version of Trump and J.D. Vance. Him and J.D. have a great 8 years with J.D. as vice president. 4 years later, J.D. runs for president with Trump as his vice president. There's nothing in the Constitution to say they can't do that. And then that would give that team another 8 years in office. So that, I wonder why nobody's tried doing that. Or is it because everybody we've elected has been too damn old at the end of their, I mean, could you imagine Obama? I mean, he went from dark-haired and a good-looking man to shallow, I mean, full of white and gray, and his face was deeply lined when he got out at the end of his 8 years. But again, I don't think that the president of any party should just willy-nilly send troops in. Somebody did come up with an idea this morning, an alternate idea on how to deal with what I should do right now. What I should do, and it's an idea I had somewhat recommended a long time ago and forgotten about. ICE and the FBI should go in and DHS go into all the local employers, Walmart, Home Depot, the local lumber yards, whatever. Unpleasant hidden truths age you. Yep. Young, unless you're okay. You're absolutely right about that, Retro. But they go into these businesses and they want to see their, and with court orders signed by a judge, to see their I-9s and payroll and match it up against their list of illegals and shut the businesses down that had hired illegals. Shut them down. Because it is illegal to hire illegals. And the Republican Party needs to, and the Republicans aren't going to do it, but what they need to do, most coach here, push it through as soon as the House and Senate come back to work and get Trump to sign a bill that triples or quadruples the fines and punishments for hiring illegals. $1,000 a day per illegal. You got 10 illegals, you've had them on your working for you for 10 days. That's $10,000 times 10. So that's a $100,000 fine. Now, the reason why it won't happen is because there's enough big businesses out there that would put a kibosh to it. But that's the law I'd like to see happen. Hit the business owners that are hiring the illegals. Now, the police in Portland, they're not arresting these protesters. They're not. However, they have no problems. This is Nick's post made by Nick Sordo. Tomorrow, that was talking about yesterday, he was being arraigned for disorderly conduct. I will not take a plea deal of any kind because I did nothing wrong. I will fight this until the end and expose the Portland police in the process. This is the altercation I'm being charged for. An altercation where I was clearly the victim, asked my assailant multiple times to leave me alone, gave multiple warnings before I was punched and pushed in a hole. The assailant was not arrested. So, let's watch the video. The guy in the gray shirt here is Nick.
You ain't going nowhere. Get out of here. I'll fuck your ass up. I will fuck your ass up. Get out of here. Get out of here now. You're gonna get fucking paid. Don't fucking take it. Get it, bitch.
You alright? Okay? Get your head in
Nice rainbow color.
I know.
I like your rainbow. And well, I mean, he's saying
Who did they arrest? Did they arrest this character here? No, the Portland police ain't going to arrest these guys. The next night, the same thing happened again. He was arrested again for disturbing the peace, for just standing there recording these people. It's a shame what's going on up there in Portland. It's a shame what's going on in Chicago. And it's a shame that they're getting away with telling the lies that they're getting away with. So, okay, I'm done with that mess for now. I don't want to make every stream or both hours of every stream about this kind of stuff. No, because we've got to do it. This next thing here I got, it's a young lady. She made this video on TikTok. And she was on she ended up doing a deep dive and learning some things that she did not know. And just watch her face as she expounds upon her education at this moment.
Video, many people commented that the very first legal slave owner in America was a Black person. And I was like, I have seen this comment enough that I will look it up myself. I'm sure that this is completely untrue, but let's see where they're getting this from, where they can feel like they can say such a thing. You guys, I have breaking news from the year 1621. I feel like an idiot. If you already knew this, leave me alone. I'm doing my best. But apparently, I'm going to tell you a story. I'm literally shook. Anthony Johnson was a slave brought over from Africa. Okay, so what I did know that many people don't know is that Black people were not just, or Africans were not just stolen by Europeans and shipped over to America. They were sold by other Africans. I did know that. A lot of people don't know that. So this was not news to me. But he was sold and he was brought over as an indentured servant, and he was freed because he served his time. An indentured servant serves for a period of time to pay off a debt or to earn their freedom, and then they get to be free. And that was the
Retro, I did not know that. So now he has spent 2 days in jail and gone through arraignments and everything else, and they're dropping the charges. See, this is a problem I do have with the police department. And they can't be sued or anything about it because, well, we thought we knew what we had going there. They arrest the wrong person on purpose, hold them in jail, and then charges get dropped, and it's like, oh well. So what if you spent 48, 72 hours sitting in a jail cell? Sucks to be you. And it'll happen again if we want it to, is the unspoken thing that goes with that. See, like I said, I support good policing. Like I support legal immigration. Unfortunately, we're not seeing good policing a lot of times. We're just not. What can you, and you can't fight it because there's too many court cases, court decisions, all the way up to the Supreme Court. This qualified immunity that I don't believe any cop should have. At all under any circumstances. But they've got it and they know what laws they can abuse. So, anyway, back to this young lady.
Model that was meant for the Africans in America. Hang with me because this gets crazy. He was an indentured servant himself. He earned his own freedom. He bought land and then he owned slaves. He was the first, but I'm going to get there. Okay. He owned slaves, black and white slaves on his tobacco farm. Are you kidding me? He owned white people? Okay, so he owns white people. And then there's this guy named John Kasser. John Kasser earns his freedom through indentured servitude because that's the model. And Anthony's like, no, actually, you're my slave for life. I know that nobody's ever heard of this, and this is not the typical model, but you will actually not be earning your freedom, and you will be my slave for life. So he goes to court, and he pleads his case, and he's like, you guys get back to me with a ruling on whether or not I can keep John forever because I don't really want him to be let go. There are other reasons. There was a neighbor, whatever. It doesn't matter. He's like, he's going to be my slave for life. And the court rules in Anthony's favor and it's like, we love this for you. Keep him forever. So Anthony Johnson is the first legal slave owner. It's the first legal acknowledgement in English America that an African could be held as a slave for life. And he was owned by a black man who owned other slaves who were both black and white. And when they were writing our history books, they were like, we don't need to talk about that. Are you joking? I don't know if I'm being dramatic, but this changes everything.
The looks on her face when real history is discovered and how it doesn't align with what is put out there by the mass media, by the public in general, by our own school systems. Here in Florida, they made a big deal, the liberals, the Democrats, the leftists. Oh, they're not going to talk about slavery in the schools. They're not going to talk about slavery. They're whitewashing slavery out of our education system. I'm hoping that real history gets taught in the Florida education system about how slavery really did come to the United States, how it was originally indentured servitude. 7 years and you were on your own with a little chunk of change in your pocket until this case. Also, how only less than 10%, I think it's 8% total, owned slaves in the United States. Well, she had a follow-up video to this.
So Black people owned slaves in America, or in the 13 colonies, for those of you who are history nitpickers. And I thought that sharing a story about that would be both fascinating for all, but like unifying. And I thought that it would bring forth a shared experience because it shows that not only are all of us complicit in our shared horrible histories, but we're also likely all at some point victims of our horrible history. And I thought that that would be empowering for people who have been taught for many, many years that there's an oppressor and there are the oppressed, and there's really no gray area or in between. And I think it's important that we take our power back, because the Democrat Party has made a concerted effort to make us fester in our victimhood and in our oppression. We have been stuck. We've been stuck in our own way because we have been taught that things have been harder for us than it has ever been for anyone else in this country. And that's not true. The examples are insane. I have read more in the last couple of days than I have my entire life about the different ethnic groups that have been brought to this country, what they have been put through, and the fact that the only people who it's highlighted for in movies, in Hollywood, in plays, in so many books, and so it is visualized to us for a reason. It is highlighted for us for a reason, and it was to take our power so that we felt like we were more victims than everybody else. And it's just not true. And if we stop being so manipulated by the Democrat Party, then they no longer have a stronghold over us. And to me, that's empowering, but I've already gone through that cognitive dissonance. I've already recognized that they have been using me for votes and trying to get me to basically marinate in my own misery and blame, point fingers, and never take personal responsibility for my future, right? So if you're in that process, I encourage you to lean into it, because when you can no longer be used and you can no longer be manipulated, you have all of the power. And for me, what I've noticed is taking away some people's crutch of victimhood takes away their entire identity, because when you have to take away your victimhood, you have to take full responsibility and accountability for who you are, for where you are, and what you've accomplished or not. And that's really hard to do.
This young lady is speaking some hard truths there. And I love it. I love that she had this awakening at this age. And Digi, I agree with you. It does matter. You know, it does matter that these people, that everybody, now, nobody has, and least of all, I have never said that American history is flawless. Because anybody says that either is a liar or ignorant. Because, I mean, America is made up of people. And people do, even the best of people do bad things on occasion. Or what is deemed later on as society changes is bad things. You know, slavery was one of those things, though, that half the country always looked at as being a bad thing. I don't know if this young lady's got a YouTube channel or not, because I just discovered her on TikTok. But yeah, it was a good thing. And I am overall very happy. So let's see here. What else is on my list here? Let's take a break from ugliness. I shared this the other day, and I just couldn't help myself, because I've seen kittens like this before. But this was just too cute. Oh! Man, it went from just polite little meows to holy cripe. Pick that cat right up off the floor using the bottle. I think he was just a little bit on the hungry side. What do you guys think? That's a beautiful facial markings, though. No, Mama, no, you can't have this yet. There's still a drop or two in there. That's on my timeline there, Digi, over on X, because the video was originally from TikTok. Anybody with a cat has to have a heart for that, because that little kitten was just so stupid cute. But cats are like people in a way. I mean, we saw the cute cat. These cats were put in separate cages because they kept fighting.
打架真打架嘞！什么？嘿嘿，打架我不上来。我不上来。你看，看得到还打嘞？干嘛干嘛？不服气啊？打起来！打！揍他！来来来，打个斗。 打架是打架嘞！什么？嘿嘿，打架我不上来。
They're going to fight no matter what.
干嘛干嘛？不服气啊？打起来！打！揍他！来，给他来个打个斗。
They don't know how to. They don't know how to stop fighting. That is just too funny. What cat was an ugly cat, Digi? That little kitten? That little kitten wasn't ugly. That cute kitties. Okay, let's see here. What is next on my list of things I had going today? Because there's no one thing here. I mean, it's not like yesterday where we had the one thing that was going to do everything for us. The Supreme Court has refused Maxine Giswell's appeal. So she's going to be spending time in jail. Now, there's been some reactions to that Hegseth video, the one we watched yesterday. Okay. And let me go ahead and read this because I've got some comments about that, about what's going on with this. And I love the way that the media is portraying this. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth's "My Way or the Highway" message to hundreds of generals and admirals at a summit in Virginia last week has sparked fears that some top leaders may choose to bow out of the military entirely. Well, that's what he told them to do. If they can't follow orders, and that's everybody in the military. Retro? Oh, no, I wasn't going to show an ugly cat, just two cats that were fighting. If you can't follow orders, and that was sort of the joke back when Congress was actually debating requiring women to enlist or register for the draft, and the women were sitting there saying, well, they'll have to learn that we women aren't like men. We don't take orders. You know, if you can't take orders, don't enlist. Don't enlist or don't become an officer. And if you are an officer, resign your commission. The departure of two senior leaders last week stroked these worries, though the Pentagon says they were unrelated to Hegseth's ultimatum. His speech directly attacked the values of many senior officers and enlisted members in the audience, and I expect many of them to demonstrate their disgust by retiring. Don Christian, a retired Air Force colonel and former military lawyer who watched the speech. Once again, there were these, they didn't, you know, that when don't ask, don't tell became a thing. They flat right said anybody that couldn't handle having a gay man for a roommate or a lesbian for a roommate needed to get out because they weren't suited to be in today's military. There was nothing in there about, oh my God, they're offending these people on their beliefs. The high-profile exits came just hours after Hegseth's speech to hundreds of top admirals and generals in Quantico, which he outlined his vision of a military devoid of woke garbage being in quotations, proposing less restrictive rules of engagement and fewer waivers that allowed troops to have a beard. He also declared he would curtail whistleblower and inspector general malfunctions, change how the military handles allegations of hazing and other types of abuse, and allow drill sergeants to put their hands on recruits. And this is a direct quote, if the words I'm speaking today make your heart sink, then you should do the honorable thing and resign, told the mostly stoic audience. When you're in a commander's call, a commander's call is it, you know, they're acting like a commander's call is like a cheerleading process where people applaud, you know, like a speech before Congress where, you know, people applaud when a good line is given, or governor is given a speech, uh, and people stand up and applaud him. No, a commander's call. You sit there and listen. He's not there for you to give him applause or to boo him. He's there to tell you how it's going to be and when it's going to be that way. The comments prompted the New York Times to run an unusual headline last week in which it invited senior military leaders to speak to the outlet should they indeed decide to resign. Are you quitting the military? We want to hear from you. Some Democrats are urging military leaders who disagree with Hegseth to stay where they are. If the challenge was get out, then I would say to those generals, stay put. Representative Chrissy Houlihan, a Democrat from Pennsylvania, Air Force veteran, said on CNN, because we need you and your experience to counter the message of Hegseth and, frankly, the president himself. I'm trying to control my temper here right now. I really am. What that representative just told these military people to do is to directly ignore the orders, lawful orders, given to them in their chain of command by the president and the secretary of war. Those, if they were to find that any one of these officers or senior enlisted people were to counter the message, violate the direct orders of Hegseth and Trump, then they would be up for court martial. And she is actually advocating for that. You cannot. I had to follow orders I absolutely hated. I absolutely did. I had when I had to follow. I sat there and said, "God, no, I don't want to do this, but I got to." And I wasn't the only one. Had to follow orders we didn't like. Had a young man put on restriction. We were under orders to supervise him while he was on his restriction and ensure that he followed the directives of his restriction, of his punishment. I didn't like doing that because I liked the guy. I didn't like watching him doing his extra work, supervising him while he was doing it. I didn't like having to escort him to the chow hall and ensure he didn't talk to anyone. Exactly, Paul. Sit down, shut up, and listen. It's how those things work. But I followed the orders and did what I was told to do. That's one of the worst cases, honestly, of where I had to follow orders, directives I didn't like. That was actually because, like I said, I knew the guy. I didn't like supervising him while he was in his punishment because I did like him. I thought that the punishment was a bit harsh for what he did, but they made an example out of him. Yeah, you don't want to make your friend feel worse. And actually, in a way, it was better me than somebody that didn't like him because I made certain that he followed the dictates of it. I just didn't make it any harder on him than what somebody else might have. Somebody that didn't like him. The media back during the Obama administration and during the Clinton administration, when people resigned or were forced out of the military, because they didn't like what Obama and Clinton were doing, the media, well, they didn't need to be in this service. They weren't following orders. If you can't follow the orders, then get out. But that's because the media approved of what they were doing, of the steps that Obama, integrating gays and lesbians and transsexuals into the service. I'm waiting for the day that one of them somebody suggests allowing maps in the service, allowing pedophiles into the service. Well, we don't call them pedophiles anymore. We call them maps. Yeah, did you overall? It was smarter that it was me because while I did enforce it, I didn't make it worse on him. I didn't make it easier on him because then that would have been me derelicting my duty, but I didn't make it worse on him. So my boss knew exactly what they were doing. She knew what she was doing. She directed me to do it. And she knew I would follow the directions to the letter, but I wouldn't go over one. I wouldn't do anything worse than what were already listed. But what made me mad here in this article was a congressional representative sitting there telling military members to actually work against the orders of their superiors. That is the way so many people view the military, sadly. They think of it, because they've gotten into this idea, and I think Pete said something along this lines of, too many people think of the military as a corporation, civilian corporation, instead of what it actually is. And that's the way this representative evidently feels about the U.S. military. That if you don't like the orders that you're given to do, you can just disobey them, or you can actually work against them. Yeah, absolutely, Digi. Absolutely. I'm not bashful about my time in the service. I love my time in the service. I've got no problem talking about it, but I don't want to make that the center of my life at this point. I mean, I didn't even make it the center. Well, I made certain people knew I had other interests than just the military when I was in the military. I mean, they knew I was into computers. They knew I was into electronics repair, uh, and other things besides, hunting and fishing. I mean, hell, every day I went to work. I had my bass boat on the back of my truck up until a friend of mine sank it. But when we have members of Congress saying they're actively announcing that they want military members to disobey orders by the president and by the Secretary of War, that Hegseth and the president both should be stepping out. The Joint Chiefs of Staff should be stepping out and telling, you know, calling this woman out by name and telling her that she's a disgrace. Yeah, she was in the Air Force. She was in the chair force there. She was probably an admin troop or something along those lines. Even if she was an officer, she probably, over on the blue suiter side of base. She wasn't on the flight line side. She didn't have to worry about giving orders that absolutely had to be followed, that people didn't like. I need to do what is I'm going, let me see if I can find out what she did. Representative Chrissy Holohan. I didn't think about doing this earlier. I should have. Military service. All right, let's see what we got on this. What comes up? She spent 3 years in the United States Air Force at Hansom Air Force Base in Massachusetts working on aerospace defense technologies. She later served in the Air Force Reserves before separating in 2004 as a captain. Oh my God, she serves on the Armed Services and House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence. Engineering degree from Stanford. Well, that says everything you need to say about her. She was a blue suiter. She didn't have to deal with anything. Now, did you? I don't have anything really to brag about my military service. I really don't. I mean, I went in, I did my job. I either fixed jets, spent I think about a year doing correctional custody and T flight, and spent 3 years handling the squadron's money. I don't think she retired. I think she just got out there, Retro. I don't think she retired. I think she just went ahead and got out as a captain. And and being in the guard, or reserve, she's not going to make a bunch of rank anyway in the reserves. So yeah, she probably was passed over a few times. But it does make me rather angry that she would sit there and actually tell people to violate, not follow direct orders from their superior officer, from the civilians who can remember the U.S. military people. It's in the Constitution is civilian leadership. The president can't be active duty military. So I don't think they'd accept him as guard or reserve either. I think they'd kick him out if they were deciding, make him retire out if they were deciding to do that. Anyway, all right, guys. I'm getting a little pissed off here. The more I think about a member of the House, a member the military sits on the military board, telling active duty military to ignore the orders that they're given. I think I'm gonna be writing my Congress critter this afternoon or calling them. I think I'm going to be calling my Congress critter this afternoon about this because she should not be allowed to do that. Not without being called out on it. Retro, I had a major one day who had his line number for light colonel. Him and I were sitting there talking, and he wanted to. This is back. We were sitting there talking. He wanted to spend some money, squadron cash, and I told him no. And he said, "Why not?" And I said, "Because I'm not going to put the colonel and I in jail. If you want money for that, you need to do a collections from the other officers to do that." And he said, "Well, it's for morale." I said, "I still can't spend money letting you do that." And we talked about it some more and more. And finally, when I told him, just absolutely, I said, "I'm sorry, sir, but I absolutely will not authorize the expenditure of that money. And if I see it pop up on any of the Amex cards," this is back when everybody was issued Amex cards because they decided to quit paying us travel pay in advance. We're supposed to do it all on our own on these American Express cards. I said, "I will turn it in for fraudulent use of a government credit card." And he just looked at me and goes, it's a damn good thing you're enlisted, not an officer. Because you're scary enough as a damn enlisted troop. You got to know what regs you're willing to break and accept the punishment for. If you're caught, which ones is like, that punishment is way too steep. I mean, I'd take a letter of counseling, even a letter of reprimand, if breaking that reg made life a little bit easier on me. But I'm not going to go to jail. So, I just got some company pulling in. You're hearing my security system going off. So I need to go ahead and shut the computer down before they get in here. Because I see who it is, and it's my son, his wife, and 2 children. So we will catch you all Thursday, because I'm going to be up all night tonight. Y'all have a good day. Enjoy yourselves. Be with the ones you love and love the ones that you're with. And have